Chapter 16. Carlota could not tear her eyes from the corpse. In her head, she knew this was a Sith, a self-appointed enemy of all that was good in the galaxy. But it had the face of a pretty young woman, and that disconcerted her. Carlota sensed someone unfamiliar walking up beside her. Through the side of her vision, she saw a young Nikto man with a blaster rifle stare worriedly down at the laser-smashed body. Another Nikto man who resembled him did the same. "Is it true?" asked one of them. "Was she really called Scylla Horus?" "It is true." The Nikto shook his head. "We knew this girl before she was what she is." Now Carlota turns to face them. "Did you? Then you were Sith too, once?" No, we were nothing like that. We weren't that bad." He waffled. His spitting image spoke up. "Might as well tell you, my brother and I, we got up to some mighty lousy things when we were teenagers. We ran with a gang where there was a human girl called Scylla Horus. That girl was strange. There was something wrong with her. There was a kinda hate in her, and it went all the way down." "Yeah," said his brother. "There was this one time when we tried something stupid, and it was a disaster. The whole gang was rattled, all except for her. After the fight, while we were sitting there finding our heads again, she was chewing out some other girl for not doing enough fighting." "She gave in to her emotions," said Carlota, and it had turned her into a monster. It confirmed everything Carlota had come to this planet believing. Carlota walked away from the grim sight and sought something useful to do. Nobody seemed to need help, at least not that she could provide. Militia fighters were starting to get the message that they'd won, and cheers broke out. Survivors slapped each other's backs and hugged each other tightly. As wrong as it was to celebrate death, Carlota found it hard to blame them. She found Keither speaking to a woman in camouflaged armor who sat on a rock and swigged water from a canteen. Carlota approached. "It was exceedingly brave of you to engage the Sith hand to hand," said Keither. "When I saw her move close to you, I confess I thought you were as good as lost. I'm glad I was wrong." The commando put down her canteen and shook her head. "I would have thought the same thing. I tell you, hun, I got 3 kids at home, and they almost lost their mama today." She wiped her sweat-soaked brow. "I'm glad I didn't think of that when the Sith was coming after me, or else I would have freaked." "I understand," said Carlota. She understood better than the commando could have known. A few of the combatants boarded a speeder and left, as though they had just finished a day's work and were eager to forget it and return home. Others gawked at the body or took photographs. Some called loved ones, and many, unsurprisingly, wept for the dead. It did not take long for the bounty hunters to start harassing the young Deputy Hanks about their pay. He looked shaken and answered them haltingly, and soon Carlota saw why. A gash as thick as her arm had been cut into his shirt, going almost from one shoulder to the other. For a moment, she marveled at how he had survived. Then she overheard Keither somewhere behind her rattling off medical jargon, and she put the two together. It made her so proud that she wanted to cry. The sheriff, it seemed, had already done so. Carlota walked up behind the pack of bounty hunters and said, "Patience, all of you!" A few of them turned to look at her. She pointed at the deputy. "Can't you see he's been grievously injured? He requires rest to center himself. He and his father are both honorable men. You will be paid in due time." That got most of them to leave him be, and the rest decided to follow their colleagues rather than harry him with diminished numbers. "Thanks," said the deputy. "Guess I needed that." "It seems the Sith was able to reach you. I am very sorry we were not able to keep her from you." "Don't be. If you hadn't been here, shoot." He shook his head. "I can't imagine how many we would have lost. I underprepared for this." "We all did," said the sheriff. "That girl was a damn one-woman army." "But I think you're right," said the deputy. "As soon as I finish drafting the reports, we really could use some downtime. The Nikto men excused themselves, and when Carlota looked around for something else to do, she saw a few of the militia setting up tents around Keither's portable clinic. When Carlota inquired as to their purpose, one of them said, "Beds. Some of the wounded are gonna be here a while. Gotta keep 'em warm overnight in case the ambulances don't get here by then, and it's getting nippy this time of year." "Could I be of assistance?" "Sure. Grab a space heater and hook it up." The clinic mushroomed into a tent city with medically knowledgeable locals tending to the less severely wounded and coordinating communications with far-off hospitals. A few rescue aircraft arrived to take in a few injured each, but at the rate at which they arrived, it would indeed take the better part of the day for them to attend to everyone, and already the sun dipped to the horizon, burning the sky with magnificent colors. The wind picked up, and tents needed to be tied down. Eventually, the whirlwind of activity ebbed away. Keither had finally done all he could for the wounded, and the dead were taken care of according to local custom. A few local reporters arrived, and Carlota answered their questions and avoided their cameras as best she could. Finally, Keither approached her with a face that said that it was time to leave this madness behind and go back to the temple where everything was safe and familiar. Carlota prepared herself to say, "Yes, let us go." "Master," he said, "I think it's finally time we let things be for now. Would you like to come to the bar with us?" "Yes, let us go." "Wait, what?" He gestured to Rolls and the Hankses behind him. "Sheriff Hanks tells me that he knows of a good place to relax after a difficult day, and I think we all need it. Are you willing?" A Jedi had no business in a bar, but somehow Carlota lacked the energy to say that, so she assented. The bar, as it turned out, was themed to motorsports. A grand holoprojector in the middle of the open main room showed a swoop bike race on some distant planet, and an announcer did his best to decipher what was happening, while the voices of other announcers issued from other corners of the bar, narrating their own unfolding dramas and clashing in a dizzying cacophony. Photographs of fancy and powerful swoop bikes emblazoned the unevenly lit walls, and portraits of people whom Carlota supposed to be famous players hung with signatures written fancily across them. It baffled Carlota that anyone could relax in this noisy madhouse. She barely noticed Keither leading her to a 5-seated table, and someone ordering drinks. She came back to reality when she heard her name in the sheriff's voice. "So what's waiting for you when you're done, Jedi? I know your kind aren't much for celebration, but do you at least get some R&R? "Of course we do. The mind and body must each be maintained with work and rest both, or a Jedi becomes unbalanced." "Are we ever going to see you again?" "Contact outside of Jedi business is discouraged." "Hey," said Rolls, "I'll write you." "You're on," said the younger Hanks, or Jonan as they were calling him. "And hey," Rolls went on, "if we're lucky, maybe there'll be a meteorite or something, and then Keither and I can come here on relief and we'll have Pazak night." The Hankses looked at him uncomfortably. "You'll have to excuse him," said Keither. "His mouth lacks a cutoff switch. I've looked for it." A pretty Twi'lek girl arrived and cheerfully handed out drinks, and to Carlota's surprise, one of them was for her. Conversation around the table calmed as everyone except Carlota drank. Keither put his cup down first. "Aren't you going to drink, Master?" "Yeah," added Rolls. "You don't have to age it. The brewers do that for you." She waffled. "I do not know if this is acceptable for a Jedi." There was a rule about it, somewhere, she was sure, but she couldn't remember it. Keither waved her concerns away. "Trust me, I am a doctor. Your blood alcohol won't come anywhere near the legal limit." "Humans can handle that much," said Rolls. "It's what human pilots are always saying. Wait 8 hours from bottle to throttle, and then it's like it never happened. And you're not even flying, you'll be fine." He looked greedily at his drink. "Course, I don't envy them. I only need 5. And he drained his glass. Sheriff Hanks nodded. "Humans can hold their liquor just fine. Now, if you were a Toydarian..." He trailed off. "Hey, come on," said Rolls, thunking down his glass. "Don't leave us hanging. What? What happened?" Hanks laughed. I'm not sure I should tell that story." "I'm not going to tell," said Jonan. "Likewise," said Keither. Carlota shrugged. "Nor will I." "Me neither," said Rolls, "unless it's really funny." The sheriff's eyebrows jumped. All right, you asked for it. He began hesitantly, with a discomfort that Carlota did not need the Force to sense. Frequently, he would backtrack and qualify what he said, or stop and explain things that he seems to think the Jedi would not know. Then he found his courage, and he told the story with an eyewitness's clarity. It was inappropriate, improbable, and painted everyone in an unflattering light. And Carlota found herself giggling at it. "Dad," said Jonan, "last time you told me that story, you didn't mention the part with the electric coils." Sheriff Hanks looked unrepentant. "Last time I told that story, you were 10 years old." Keither spread his hands accommodatingly. "It's inevitable. When we over-rely on our physical strength, such are the disasters that follow." "Hey now," said Hanks, "you're one to talk. I've been meaning to ask, why don't you Jedi carry blasters? They could really come in handy." Keither glanced over at Carlota as if to offer her the rebuttal. She obliged. "A Jedi is to be precise and defensive. With a lightsaber, to take another being's life is a deliberate action to be premeditated, not the mere pull of a trigger which is easily forgotten. And with a Jedi weapon, we can only harm someone from afar if first they attack us. It is the weapon of a pacifist." "Really?" chimed in Jonan. "Because the Sith seem to like it a lot too." He pointed to his shirt, still torn with the grisly reminder of his wound. "Trust me, I know." Sheriff Hanks gave a shiver, then collected himself and pointed at Keither. "But my point was, you Jedi need something like that. You rely on the Force for everything, so you don't train your eyes, your muscles." He patted his chest. "You don't do good old-fashioned grunt work." "Oh?" Keither's ears perked, and he put an elbow on the table, hand up. "Care to test that theory?" "All right!" yelled Rolls. "Arm wrestling match!" "Get him, Dad!" said Jonan. With one last swig of his drink, Hanks accepted the challenge. Rolls counted them off, and the men's arms tensed. Keither honored the spirit of the competition, and did not summon the Force, and it was an even match. The men's clasped hands swayed one way, then the other. Finally, Keither began to gain the upper hand, and soon he had the leverage to press the sheriff's knuckles to the table. "Dang," said the sheriff, massaging his hand. "You really do pack a punch." "The same goes for you," said Keither. "Do you play sports?" "Used to box when I was younger." Carlota looked at Jonan and said, "You have some impressive shoes to fill, young man." "After today?" He brightened. "Shoot, I'll never be scared of anything again." Untruthfulness colored his aura. There was lingering fear in him, a mental wound that had stayed open even as the wound in his flesh had healed. But with that fear, Carlota also sensed a burgeoning inner strength. This boy would be fine. "What's that look supposed to mean?" asked Rolls. Carlota realized that her thoughts had shown on her face. But rather than explain herself, she smiled and said, "Nothing." She looked at the deputy. "Only I have faith that you're equal to the challenge." "Well, you know, son," said the sheriff, darkening, "it's easy for you not to be scared. You're not the one who has to explain to your mother how I almost got you killed." He forced a laugh. "I've already had one raging woman want to kill me today. I don't need two." The deputy smiled. "I won't tell if you don't. Have you seen the scar on your chest? Next time we go for a swim, she'll notice." The fabric drooped from the cut across his chest, exposing him from the collarbone to the middle of his rib cage. Looking at it, Carlota had a stray thought, and despite herself, she laughed at it. "What?" asked Jonan, looking at her. "It's nothing." One look around told her that that answer would not suffice, so she blushed and said, "Only, looking at your shirt, it occurs to me how fortunate we are that you're male." That got everyone laughing. "Oh yeah?" Jonan said when he recovered. "Here's what I'll do." There was a playfulness in his voice that told Carlota he would not, in fact, be doing what he had in mind. She leaned in and listened anyway. The next thing she knew, more than 2 hours had passed. The sky was black, the air was frigid, and she and Keither walked bleary-eyed back to Rolls's ship. For his part, Rolls cleaned himself in the onboard shower, hopped into his bunk, and slept as though he did not have a care in the galaxy. Keither took the next turn in the shower, giving Carlota time to think. When he dressed himself and emerged, she voiced her concern. "Keither, I notice you have not been meditating. Meditation will help you to center yourself. I think you need it, especially after the horrors we have experienced." "What I need now is sleep," he said, as he knelt over a basin and squeezed as much water from his soaked, frizzy fur as he could. "I've stayed up long past bedtime, though I don't regret it." "Keither, the Jedi Code proscribes forming attachments. Our fraternization with these men is problematic." "I suppose so." Carlota went cold. Her former Padawan had just admitted to heresy as if it were nothing. "Keither, you must not do that!" Keither sighed. He stood up, and their heads were level again. "There is something that the last several months have taught me. I think that in the back of my mind I knew it, but could not admit it to myself until now." He braced himself and said it. "I no longer believe that it is wrong to form attachments. Passions are not evil. I truly believe that." Carlota went white. That is how we become like that Sith, she thought. But when she thought back to the time they'd had in the bar, she remembered how far away her doubts and fears had been, how far away everyone's had been. She could not bring herself to disagree with him. "You have felt that same thing, haven't you?" he said. "Not all of our feelings hinder us, and even if they did, we cannot choose not to have them. We can only choose to repress them. You feared for me during our assignment here, and that fear cut you to the bone. It was plain to see. You pretended to feel nothing, and did that put you at ease? You should not blame my failings on the Jedi Code. When I had a moment of weakness and gave in to my feelings, I turned my back on you, and you very nearly died because of it. My feelings betrayed us. I have had times of weakness too. I go to the most sick and broken corners of the galaxy I can find, and I've seen more pain than anyone deserves to see. There have been times when I've wanted to give up, but I did not, and I owe that to Rolls. He provided comfort when I needed it. He gave me permission to rest and recuperate, at times when I did not have the courage or clarity to give myself that permission. Without him, I am certain I would have given up my mission. Our attachment has made us stronger, not weaker. When times are hard, we lean on each other and lend each other strength." He got a distant look in his eye. "The Jedi need to learn to do that. So many of us have gone to the dark side over the ages because we did not have friends to keep us grounded in reality." Carlota said nothing, but only pondered. Keither smiled ruefully. "I will not fault you if you report my words to the Council. It is your duty as a Jedi." "Keither, how could I possibly do that to you?" "Don't you feel it would be the right thing to do?" Carlota looked down. "No,